I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. So, a little change in our order of events. We're going to have President Schulz speak first, and he's going to be talking about the leadership transition, and he's going to be speaking about the current state of the provost office and plans for the future. Before that, and we'll be opening up questions using Zoom. And in the audience, and to respect people that are at a distance location, we ask that if you ask a question in the room, we have two people with microphones. Wait till you're mic'd, and then introduce yourself, because the people on remote distances can't see your cards. So just introduce yourself, then ask your question. Okay.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me all right? And I'm looking online. So first, let me thank you all for inserting me into your agenda at such the last minute. I appreciate the time and opportunity to be here. I will be here at the end of the month to do my regular sort of update that I do as president. And so if there are other questions and things besides what's happening with the provost, I want to make sure that people know that I'll be back at that particular time to talk about exciting things like the athletics budget and things that I know are important to many of you all. First, and I'm going to look through my notes just to make sure I hit all my points, I want to publicly acknowledge Dr. Montoya's efforts on the behalf of the university. Mitzi brought a lot of energy, vitality, insight, and really started us down the road on several very important initiatives. I think Greg didn't have a chance to mention this, but by mutual agreement with myself and Mitzi, I won't be going through a litany of reasons and things back and forth that's not appropriate for me or for her. So I'll be happy to answer as many questions as you want to ask, but there may be some things I just simply have to say that's not the type of thing I can go into in a public fashion. And again, that is, both of us agreed that that was really the appropriate venue moving forward. I also want to express my appreciation to Brian for stepping into the provost role. When he and I were discussing this, there was a couple things he made clear, and I think this was a concern that came up across several folks on campus, was that sometimes these things happen. You put somebody as interim, after a few months you strike interim, and everybody goes, wait, I thought there was going to be a search and things like that. Brian made it abundantly clear to me really two things. The first, he is retiring July 1st, and this is not a career extender for him. He's stepping in to help the university at a really critical time. And so for folks out there that are worried that somehow we're going to just extend this out over several years, that's really not our intent. The second thing I want to point out is that Brian also said he's not interested in just sitting in the office and keeping the trains running on time. If he wants to be interim provost, there's some initiatives and things that we are underway and are working on, and he wants to continue to see that and move that forward. So I know Brian will be here at some particular point to address you all as the Senate across the system, but I want to make sure that I put both those things out there. I also want to remind everybody that sometimes when we have these changes, we can think of all the things that we're not doing well. And I want to remind us that there are a lot of things that we are doing well. I don't want to go through the same list that I'll give here at the end of the month, but just as a reminder to everybody, our enrollment's at an all-time high. We've had two of the best fundraising years in our history the last 2 years. We had the best year ever in Olympia, and so on. So I know there's challenges and opportunities and things that we got to work on, but I also want to make sure that we remember that this has been a great university long before I was president. It's going to be a great university way after I'm no longer president. And as leaders come and go for whatever reasons, we are an outstanding institution that's got a lot of positive things going for it. So I think one of the other things that your faculty senate colleagues have brought to my attention is that somehow this sort of change means that we're going to halt any sort of difficult conversations, that we're going to halt doing anything that is going to take us to a different place as an institution. And I want to reassure everybody that that is not the case at all. And some of the things that we've started over the last 6 months, it's very important that we continue on. Just a list of a few things. Enrollment management strategy. We started this last academic year. We must continue to modernize our enrollment strategy, not just in Pullman, but across the system. And that's going to cause some pain because we're going to have to do some things differently. But that's something that we want to continue to push forward. Our system-wide strategic plan. Sometimes some of the challenges that all of you face as faculty, that we face as academic leaders, is that we've never really defined well what the system-level roles are for our deans, for our chancellors, for vice presidents, and things like that. Inevitably, we work really well together in certain spaces. In other spaces, there's quite a bit of conflict because roles are very nebulous. And some of that is we've just grown, we've gotten bigger, we've gotten more complex, and we need to make sure we identify those roles clearly in a collaborative way. A new budget model for WSU. This is not stopping. I've talked about the need, and we've talked about the need for a new budget model for multiple years. This is still continuing, and Stacy Pearson is going to be working with Brian and whomever succeeds Brian as our permanent provost on making sure that we're bringing forward a new budget model for WSU. We want to continue to modify the ways we connect with industry across the state. That's another thing that Dr. Montoya had started pushing us towards. How do we integrate our work with industry more effectively and efficiently across the state? That's donor dollars, it's impact on our campuses, it's student internships, it's faculty research, all of those types of things. How do we make sure that we're doing a better job at that? Now, that all being said, that's a lot. There's a lot of things happen, but when I arrived here as president, one of the things that I am particularly sensitive to is the rate of change. If you remember 3.5 years ago, people talked a lot about that my office had been involved and engaged in some significant academic restructuring, moving departments from one college to another, forming colleges and things like that. And there was a sense that sometimes faculty and staff and students and others were not really part of that decision-making process. So sometimes when people say, well, Kirk, you know, the rate of change seems awfully slow, it's because I want to make sure that we do collaborative change. This isn't whether you change or not, it's how you get there and what that pace needs to look like. So it wasn't too many years ago where we had a lot of stuff happening all at one time. And I think it's been important to make sure that we do this in a collaboration with faculty, with the faculty senate, with our deans, with our department heads and school directors, with vice presidents, and ultimately, at the end of the day, some of those decisions reside in the president's office. But I think if we do it together, we reach a point that we're just going to be so much better off. So finally, I think I've also had several people say, well, Kirk, this action has shown that you are not supportive of women leaders on our particular campus. And all I want to do is just say I have worked during my time as president to build a very inclusive and diverse cabinet. And if you look at the cabinet we have today versus the cabinet that we had 3.5 years ago, we've added 4 exceptional women leaders. We have Chancellor Sandra Haynes. We have our Chief Financial Officer, Stacy Pearson. We have, let me make sure I've got everybody down here. We have Mary Jo Gonzalez, our Vice President for Student Life. And then we have Lisa Calvert, her Vice President for Advancement and Chief Financial Officer. We have the first Asian American Athletic Director in the Power 5. Folks, we continue to attract fantastic, diverse candidates to WSU. And I just want to reaffirm my commitment. It's not a place along here that you check a box and go, we're done. I want to continue to make sure we're building a diverse leadership team in cabinet and remain committed to do so. So with that, I want to make sure that I believe our future is bright. We are going to, within the next 2 weeks, I'll put out what our provost search committee looks like. We're going to reconstitute that particular committee. We'll announce co-chairs, and we're going to have a vice president as one of the co-chairs. We want to make sure that we bring in an academic faculty member of significant stature at WSU that's also going to help us as we move forward to name that next academic leader. So we're not going to wait 6 weeks or 8 weeks or the first of the year. I want everybody to know that we're going to do this in a collegial fashion moving forward. And I'm confident that we're going to go out there and land another outstanding individual to add to our leadership team. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions or concerns or things that I can address. Yes.
My name is Vilma Navarro Daniels from the School of Languages, Cultures, and Race. And I have a couple of questions related to the provost search process. The first one is about the expenses attached to the search. I think that we all should know how much the search was in terms of expenses. And then I would like to know about the communication or lack of communication between WSU administration and the search committee. It seems to me that throughout the search, the committee did not realize about the potential conflict or disagreement between the expectations of WSU administration and the candidates' proposals and their visions for WSU future.
I don't have the dollar figure at my fingertips. I'm sure you're not surprised by that. However, I'll provide the cost of that particular search and all that information to Greg, and then we can put that back out there. I do think that your comments around alignment of candidates and things like that and what they're being tasked to do here, that's on me. I think, I sit down and met with each of the candidates in person during their interview. We did an hour Zoom meeting prior to them coming onto campus. I was did the same for all of the different candidates to talk about what types of things were important and things like that to make sure that there was a fit and we seemed to be on the same page. Obviously, I did not do that as well as I needed to, and that's something that we'll look at moving forward. And so I think as we move forward on the search, that will be something we will ask the search co-chairs to come and visit with the Faculty Senate, and I think that's the type of thing I want to make sure I'm working with them on. Now, these search firms tend to have as well, we use Isaacson Miller, the type of thing that if for any reason you have to go back out within another year, that you don't repay all those fees. All you do is pay for travel. So we don't have to go back if we elect to use that firm again and repay all of that. So a search won't be as expensive a second time. It's dollars. It's also time. Many of you in here may have served on that search, and you spend a lot of time looking through candidate files and calling colleagues at other universities and attracting candidates and things like that. So it's not always just about the dollars that we spend centrally. It's also the time commitment many of you made to bring in a colleague that you want to have come and be successful, and it's always disappointing when that doesn't work out. Mike?
Just as a follow-up to that question, I'm Mike Griswold from SMB. This is really the second consecutive outside search that's for a provost that's ended up in a similar manner. Does that speak to some sort of problem in the search and vetting process here that is beyond you?
Yeah, that's a interesting question, Mike, and the answer is I don't know. If I look at these other positions that we filled and think about it, deans, those different types of things, we've had pretty strong candidate pools. Sometimes, though, frankly, it's been a candidate pool at the end of the day of one that we bring in people and people say, well, if you can't get X, we probably need to go back out again. I remember the days when people came in early in my career, and the strength of the candidate was how great a package they could negotiate on types of stuff that they could get from the university, faculty lines or things like that. I think the jobs aren't as attractive now because you get to come in and largely you inherit a set of problems. Typically, you also don't inherit a large set of financial, you don't come in with a big pile of money to be able to spend on initiatives. And I think it does, it attracts individuals who want to do that, but are more problem-solving oriented just because you don't get to come in and take your time and make investments that you need to. So I think that we probably need to make sure that we're doing a different set of vetting near the end for any set of candidates. Some universities, when they get down to one or two, actually take a team and they go to the campus there. And they spend some time with the candidate knowing this. This isn't done clandestine. And you say, look, you're down to two. We're going to send a team that's going to spread out, and they're going to visit with faculty, staff, with students, with direct reports. And, we need to come away not with the 2 or 3 people that, are chosen to be references, but just about everybody. And I think that's a discussion we need to have, is that may be the type of thing we need to make sure that we do on some of these high-profile searches, to make sure that at the end of the day we come back and say, okay, this seems like the right fit for us.
Hi, I'm Pamela Toma, and I'm a representative from CAS. And I've been asked by a group of CAS chairs and directors to read a question. We as chairs and directors in CAS are ready for true change in an institutional level. Because of that, we are deeply disappointed in this decision. How can we overcome the challenges of our current multi-campus system to truly move forward now?
So a couple things, and I appreciate the disappointment. I think Dean Jocker sent me a rather lengthy transcript of some of the points that were raised by arts and sciences faculty and staff around this. I think part of it is there are some areas that we have tremendous success across our campuses where people work pretty seamlessly together. Those don't tend to rise up to the level of everybody talking about it, because faculty and staff and department heads or whomever, they just do it. They've got colleagues they're working through. I heard, for example, in a positive, that School of Biological Sciences had a recent retreat where they had faculty from all these different campuses, and people walked away and said, hey, this is the way the system ought to work. Now, we also have some other areas where there is intense disagreement on things. And I think what we have to do is, I've asked our deans, and I want to make sure that they do this, is what are those areas of disagreement, and what are the areas that really work well? Because sometimes you can sort of find out, and let's model some of the areas that work well. Is it administrative? Is it faculty governance? Is it distance? What are the things that really are getting in the way? I felt we were moving down this road. So let me give a for instance, and I apologize if it looks like this is a meandering answer, but when I arrived, there was essentially no real collaboration and communication between the president's cabinets and our deans. The president did not meet with the deans on a regular basis. It wasn't that people didn't like each other, they just didn't know each other. There was not much interaction back and forth. So over the last 2 years in particular, we've had more times where we've gotten our deans, chancellors, all those folks together to get to know each other, to start addressing some of these problems. The bottom line is, I thought we were moving in that particular direction to start doing some of that, and that didn't start July 1. I mean, that was something we've been doing for 2 years. The overt conflicts that have come out and been talked a lot about recently, I think have certainly shown a light that we've got some issues we've got to deal with. So I don't want anybody walking away saying the campuses and our chancellors get a free pass and everything has got to be sucked up here in Pullman. When I talk to the chancellors, they say, we are ready to sit down. We know we need to change. We got to do some things differently. So I think people are ready. And it's my job, or one of my jobs, I think, to convene people together, to talk collaboratively about where the issues are that work and don't work, and then develop an action plan that we talk a little bit about. You could do all that in 2 weeks, But I think at the end of that, maybe we solve a problem, and then we've got a lot of colleagues out there that are upset that go, hey, my voice was never heard. And I really want to continue to reinforce we must have all voices heard as we make these decisions.
So can you speak to, at the administrative level, about barriers to changing now, to the change that we seem to have been beginning and we're looking forward to?
Yeah, so if anybody who follows me on social media knows I'm at the other locations a lot. It doesn't feel like that much, but just by the time you add our 5 other locations and things like that, you spend a couple days there, you try and do that 4 times a year, it just adds up after a while. The problem we have, in a weird way, is every campus is different. And by that, you know, when you're in Vancouver, the issues in Vancouver are not the same as in the Tri-Cities and Spokane and Pullman. And I think for a while we try and say it's Pullman, and we have these little replicants out there that are just mini Pullmans. And what happens, you wind up going and you finding it's a lot of these different kind of challenges and issues there. So how do we do it? We get the chancellors, we get the deans, and the appropriate VPs, and we put out on the table what are the serious challenges that we've got to address, what's a timeline for addressing them, and how are we going to get to a solution. And then I also want us to highlight the areas that are working really well, because we don't tend to do that. We worry about the ones where you don't, we forget about the ones. And then for SBS that worked well, what is it they do that somehow seems to transcend chancellors, presidents, all that kind of stuff, versus widget science that can't seem to figure out a way to make things work. So I'm happy to come back to the Senate, and I'll be prepared in my next set of comments to talk directly about how we can move this forward with leadership.
Hello?
Probably got a lot of email done. So.
Hello?
Oh.
This is from
Yes.
outside the room. My name is Shura Brojat. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And I am a professor in electrical engineering and computer science. I have 1 comment and 2 questions. The comment is that I, for one, know that you are very supportive of women. I know how much you respect your wife, who is one of my colleagues, Noel Schultz. And so I have no questions whatsoever about how supportive you are of diversity. I do have 2 questions. The first is, you probably have heard that many faculty were quite shocked to learn of Dr. Montoya stepping down. And the news traveled far and wide outside the university. And the sense that most of the well, at least the people with whom I speak, is that she was, I don't know what the right word is, but that she was really hurt by this. She kind of was shafted in this whole situation. And that worries me about, and as I said, I heard from people who are in administrations at other universities, and I'm just wondering how we're going to be able to find another really good candidate, given what everyone knows outside the university. My second question is, my question is, how are we going to do that? Or is that something about which you are worried? My second question, while I have you here, or while I'm here anyway, is that I have heard from the faculty, and so I'm speaking from a faculty point of view, not from any kind of leadership, not even from my own unit, that your advisory group consists of a lot of presidents, and that there are not very many people who have come up through the tenure track ranks, so that decisions that or suggestions that are made are not always understood by the faculty. Of course, I know you understand them, but that sometimes the provost is kind of a lone voice in a crowd representing the faculty. I just wonder how true that is. This is the impression I have. This is what I've heard. And I'm just, because if anybody who knows me and Nancy Swanner can speak for this, I will ask kind of questions that I really have. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me do in reverse order. The second one, there is no advisory board or anything that I have aside from regents and my colleagues here that are in leadership positions. And so to be frank, I would never talk about a personnel matter that's internal with an external group. That is inappropriate. And so that's not a set of individuals that I would go talk with about this type of a thing. The second thing is I've heard this from multiple people that somehow we have a leadership in the room and the provost is the only voice of the faculty. A lot of the other VPs that are there interact with you all on a very regular basis. And so I don't want people to sort of think we get in this room and start talking about something that affects faculty, and the only person that will say, hey, we think this is important is the provost, and none of the other leadership at the university goes, oh, well, that doesn't matter. So I think the provost is the academic leader, and you expect them to do that for the faculty, but you've got some outstanding leaders at WSU across the board that represent faculty interests an awful lot of the time. So I just don't want anybody thinking there are these huge arguments and the provost is the only person speaking for the faculty. Am I worried about the message that it sends out there? Absolutely. If I said no, you ought to worry that I'm just naive and have no clue what happens in universities or out there. Several people have asked about this and said, well, regardless of the reasons for the decision or whether we support it or was appropriate or not, how are we going to go out there and talk to that next great candidate who goes, the last person for whatever reason didn't work effectively with the president or whatever, do I want to have that happen to me in my career? So I don't have a complete answer for that. I've been trying to respond to faculty concerns, dean's concerns, meet with different groups. And I think as we start the search, that's going to be a question that we're going to have to be able to answer. A couple quick things. One, we have to have absolutely a faculty colleague who has got impeccable credentials, has been at WSU a long time and represents us really well, has got to be one of those co-chairs. So that if a candidate says, hey, what's the faculty response to this? What are faculty thinking? That kind of thing. You've got somebody that's a pretty independent voice there that's going to be able to do that. I also think that one of the co-chairs needs to be a senior vice president on campus that people also have worked with and respect. And as somebody who's worked with me that can also say, not here's all the stuff that happened, here's what Kirk is like to work with, here's what the university is like to work with, here's the challenges. So you can say, well, gee, that doesn't seem to be a lot right now, but I think getting that right is the first step. Secondly, I'll have to figure out what types of things that we're going to be willing to say. And I will point out, though, that this is an outstanding institution. I mentioned that earlier. That's got, sometimes when we're here, we see the problems. Some of the folks on the outside can see a lot of the positives. And I think it's going to be important for us to talk about those. I apologize, I've taken up the first 30 minutes of your meeting. Any other questions?
Yeah. Oh, I'd
Yes.
like to just go ahead and say, yeah, I hope we get someone strongly committed to shared governance. I have to say, I came here in 2013. I found the climate extremely chilling. And when you first came, I knew that you were not like that, but people were constantly telling me, you're going to offend the president if you ask that, et cetera. So in a recent email I sent you, I BCC'd you. You were the only male administrator who bothered to respond, and I felt that many of the others felt like this is too much for our delicate ears. We don't have to pay attention to this. So I certainly recognize that some of the things you've been accused of are not true. So thank you for that, and
Thanks.
hope for the best. Yeah.
Oh. Matt, you got something? I can repeat it if I need to.
First name.
Yes, I've got an online question. It's from Professor Clark in the chemistry department. There were few tenure track faculty on the original search committee and still actively engaged in research and education. Could you be explicit about how this will change in the next search committee?
So, believe it or not, I really don't have a secret list that I've started putting together of search committee composition and things like that. I think that is a very reasonable suggestion. We haven't even started to sketch it out, and I will ensure that in working with our Faculty Senate leadership and colleagues that we'll should have very high faculty representation on the search committee. So, and you know, I just want folks, in the past, we've had search committees that we've announced, and sometimes people have said there needs to be more representation here or there, and we've modified that and added people. So I also want to make sure that we don't want to send a search committee add 7 people, but at the same time, we try to be flexible as people bring up things. We go, yeah, that's a really good idea. So we'll work with Greg and team to make sure that we have a committee that you all say is representative of the faculty. All right.
Thank you.
Happy trails back to Spokane. Okay. Do I have I guess our next agenda item is to approve the minutes of September 19th, 2019. Oh, yes. Yeah, we're quorum. We're doing it on Zoom now. So everybody signs in, so it's much easier than reading the roster. Okay. So approval of the minutes, September 19th, 2019. Any changes? Any errors? No? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, the minutes are approved. Announcements, information items. We met with the president and the former provost last month. Yes, last month. And a couple of items. One was that was discussed primarily with the president that is moving forward, and that's campus safety, specifically some of our larger classrooms. So we're working with the WSU Police Advisory Board, and we're going to be taking a tour of some of those classrooms because, as several people pointed out, some of the emails for campus safety aren't appropriate if you're in a classroom, an older classroom especially, with 300 people. So we'll let you know as that goes forward. And then the other are just some minor change bulletins. I did want to point out information item number 6. This term, we're looking at a lot of changes to the faculty manual. As I said last time, those are in 2 parts. One is a structural change that that removes the inconsistencies and the odd table of contents and takes all of areas of section 5 out and merges them sections 1 through 4. And because all of those changes occur in the agenda, we collected them onto a single web page so that we can track, because we want to make this as absolutely transparent as possible. So it is the first or second link on the Faculty Senate website, and it said Faculty Manual Project, because it is a project. So you can sort of follow along, and that's open for comment. So all of the stuff that's coming up right now, other than the royalty issue, is just structural changes to the manual. So we'll keep that up to date. So yeah, those are my remarks as well. So let's move on to number 4. Are there any changes or additions to today's agenda? Hearing none. Okay, agenda items. Action item. Recommendation from the Graduate Studies Committee to approve Graduate Major Change Bulletin Number 1. Alex and Umesh are here or online. All in favor, please say yes. Yes. All opposed? Passes. Recommendation from the Graduate Studies Committee to approve the certificate in bioinformatics, exhibits M and M1. Again, Alex and Umesh. No questions? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Recommendation number 3 from the Faculty Affairs Committee to approve the revisions to the faculty manual on changes to the faculty manual in section 4I, use of faculty authored, edited, or prepared scholarly materials, exhibits 001, 02P. Steve Hines is here. No questions? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Number 4, recommendation from the Academic Affairs Committee to approve the UCOR Bulletin Number 1, Exhibits P. Casey is here. Nothing? Okay. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Recommendation or action item number 5, recommendation from the Academic Affairs Committee to approve revision to Rule 82, religious observances, Exhibit Q. Casey is here. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Number 6, recommendation from the Academic Affairs Committee to approve the revision to Rules 38, 106, 111, and eliminate Rule 42, new terminology, admission to the major, Exhibit R. And Casey is here. No discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Number 7. Oh, yes, all, thank you. All opposed, please say yes. Okay, number 7, thank you. Number 7, recommendation from the Professional Health Sciences Committee to approve the Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine for future academic calendar dates, Exhibit S and S1, and John is here. All in favor, please say yes. All opposed, please indicate yes? No. Okay. Number 8, recommendation from the Professional Health Sciences Committee to approve the revision to Rule 119 on official certificates, Exhibit T. John is here. All in favor, please say yes. All opposed, please say no. Okay. Number 9, recommendation from the steering committee to approve the Faculty Senate Committee's Exhibit U. And I guess we're here for that. All in favor, please say yes. Yes. All opposed, please say no. Number 10, recommendation from the steering committee to approve the revisions to the Faculty Senate Constitution to allow the WSU Everett Faculty Senate representation, Exhibit V, or 5. V. No comment? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Welcome, Everett. Discussion item number 1, recommendation from the Graduate Studies Committee to approve the Graduate Certificate in Applied Educational Research Methods, Exhibit W and W1. Alex and Umesh are here. Comments? Questions? Recommendation, or discussion item number 2, recommendation from the Academic Affairs Committee to approve the Undergraduate Major Change Bulletin number 2, X and X1. Casey is here. No questions? Discussion item number 3, recommendation from the Academic Affairs Committee to approve revision to Rule 100, the grade point system, Exhibit Y. Casey is here. Discussion number 4, recommendation from the Academic Affairs Committee to approve the revision to Rule 54, undergraduate minors and additional majors, Exhibit Z. And again, Casey is here to answer any questions. Discussion item number 5, recommendation from the Academic Affairs Committee to approve the academic calendar for 2025 and to 2030, Exhibit D. Casey again. Nothing. Discussion item number 6, recommendation from the Faculty Affairs Committee to approve the revision to the faculty manual, Exhibits E and E1, and Steve is here. Okay. Constituent concerns. Again, we have the website, but I'm happy to hear any constituent concerns that you have in person.
No, I went ahead and emailed Faculty Senate members to see if they would be interested in supporting this, but ASWSU came out with a resolution calling for a retrial of the police officer Dan Hargraves. There was a credible charge of custodial rape of one of our own students. And I immediately, I just found out about this the last couple of days, but I immediately thought that we shouldn't just leave it to the students to demonstrate that they're concerned about students, but it would be good if Faculty Senate also did that. And I knew this was a busy day, but I at least sent an email letting you know and asking if you would consider supporting it. Thanks.
Anything else? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.